So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are listening to this particular recording. A couple reminders, if you have not gotten me your proof of your signed letters, please do so ASAP. Remember, you have to have 5 people sign it. You have to have sent me the official letter first. I made some tweaks, but most of you did an excellent job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, just so you know, you really are making a difference in children's lives. So, listen to the news. One of the, I think it was on a federal level, they put more money into childcare. So, or I'm sorry, on the New York state level, they put more money into childcare. Governor Hochul decided to do that because she said the urgency. So, your letters really do help. Okay, so please take a snapshot and send me proof. Okay. Second thing is your test will open up this Friday, November 5th. So I did post a review sheet. I recorded the review sheet, so please listen to the recording, jot down answers, etc., because it will be timed. You will have 1 hour and 15 minutes to complete the test. You have to do it all at one seating, and please do it complete it on the computer. The computer is I found students have trouble if they go on their phone, okay? So it will open in the morning on November 5th and it closes at 11:59 that night, okay? So please remember to take that test. Also, those of you who are not graduating, if you registered for next semester's classes, it'll be worth 10 extra points. If you are graduating, I think you have to let the registrar know. So show me some proof and you will also get 10 extra points, okay? So please do that sooner rather than later. It's 10 easy points for you all. So we're going to talk about maltreatment and the developing child. So this will include neglected and abused children. Okay. So parenting styles obviously affect abused children. So a lot of times the common characteristics is impaired bonding. All right. Some parents don't bond with their children. Maybe they were born with some kind of physical or developmental challenges, and it makes it very hard. A lot of times parents don't have their own needs met, particularly if they're young parents. Sometimes people have a child think, oh, I finally have somebody to love me. Well, then they find out that, that doesn't happen until the child gets older, and you have to put all your attention into that particular child. Children are emotionally deprived, and that can be just as detrimental to a child as physical abuse. And sometimes there's a role reversal. There's a term that we call parentified, and sometimes the child takes over the role of the parent. For example, if a parent, asks the child, let's say their 7-year-old to cook dinner every night, that means they're parentified, and the child doesn't get a chance to be a child. So they grow up with many, many issues that they wouldn't normally grow up with. So both physically and sexually abusive parents, most of the parents, they love their children. They love their children. Love may look a little bit differently. The child's wanted and desired, but they have a very complex set of high expectations, sometimes unreal. Okay, remember the learning theory of child abuse and neglect is that parents don't know how to properly parent their children. They don't know the developmental stages. How long should you put a 2-year-old in timeout? Those kinds of things. They see abuse as normal discipline, okay? And maybe they grew up with that. So, parents who grow up with abuse or neglect, they don't always abuse or neglect their children, but their chances are higher because they see that as normal. Often they're disillusioned with themselves and they're disillusioned with others, okay? Because they can't parent, they're disillusioned with their child because their child does not, act in a manner that they think their child should be acting. And so consequently, the child might learn to fear all adults because remember, adults obviously are supposed to keep them protected. And, in these situations, they don't. So I'm going to go through some developmental stages and what may be lacking in children who are abused and neglected. So the atmosphere, attitudes, and expectations surrounding the birth are key. We know that, we can do damage to children in utero. So it's very important that the parent or parents have good expectations and keep a positive attitude. And so a mother can adapt in various ways to pregnancy. Okay, either she can, really be excited about this baby and put all the attention on the baby, or all the attention can, you know, be on herself. Or there are other ways too. And often the father's contribution is key. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the biological father. It can be a father figure, but another parent is helpful in that situation. So control is a key issue for parents because, when you have the baby, you lose control sometime of your own life. So they have to figure out, how do I balance my needs and how do I balance the needs of the child? And sometimes it's difficult because parents who tend to abuse and neglect their child um, have grown, sometimes they've grown up in abusive households, and and so control is a big issue, and so they have to learn, how to balance those two. How well the child met the mother's expectations is influential. Okay, again, let's say the child is born and they're, allergic to the regular formula. Okay, that can be frustrating to a mother. We talk about mothers, and this is not to exclude fathers. Most of the research is done on mothers because they're the majority that spend the majority of time with children. So I'm not neglecting the fathers, but it's based on, what the research tells us. So Erik Erikson's, hopefully you're all familiar with the stages. So his first stage is trust versus mistrust. Okay, this is where the child learns to trust their environment. It's paving the way for them to have healthy self-esteem and to interact with their environment. Okay, sometimes the parent and the child do not make a good adjustment, so the child learns to mistrust the environment rather than trust the environment. Okay, non-organic failure to thrive. This means specifically, you may want to take a note on this. This means that the child, there's nothing really physically wrong with the child, but they're not growing. They're not growing because they do not get enough attention from the parent. Okay, so, it's sort of like, a husband and wife, I'm married, the wife dies, and then 6 months later, the husband dies, and you say, oh, I think they died of a broken heart. Well, children can physically fail to grow if they do not get enough love and enough stimulation. And between 6 and 12 months, the lack of social responsiveness is striking in children who are abused and neglected. So they don't do things like reach for toys. You've seen babies that when you're holding them in a new environment, they're looking all around. They don't do that because they're afraid. They have learned to mistrust their environment. And again, what I just said, disturbance in object relations is marked, meaning, they don't reach for, normally if you put something in front of a child, especially something that makes noise, and those of you who have children know that practically everything makes noise in today's world, that, they do not reach for those objects. 1 to 4 years, they're in the autonomy versus shame and doubt, and initiative versus guilt. So autonomy sort of looks like the other phase, but they're reaching out a little bit more. They want to do things on their own. Okay, and the parents kind of slaps them down or physically or yelling at them, and so they develop shame. Okay. And the initiative, the child wants to take initiative, and again the parent makes them feel guilty, so they show little interest in toys because every time they've started to play with one, the parent either makes them feel shameful or guilty. They're hyper vigilant. What does this mean? Hyper vigilant means that the child is always on alert. Okay, because nothing in their environment is safe. Okay, nothing in their environment is safe, so they're always on alert. If a child starts crying, they get really nervous, they get really tense. If there's a loud noise, it's similar to PTSD. And delays in motor activities and social development, again, because they're afraid to reach out to their particular environment. And then again, 1 to 4 years, abusing parent may see the child's independence as rejection. Okay, again, if a parent doesn't know what are the correct stages of development, they don't realize this is just the child's way of growing and developing. So they're decreasing um, some of their original need on the parents. But those of you who have children know that the child will need the parent in a different way, but it's very hard for the parent to adapt because they don't know those developmental milestones. And autonomy needs to be considered again in a cultural context. Okay, we look at developing children from an American perspective. Okay, but what does autonomy look like in other cultures? All right, so you have to know something about somebody's culture, and one way is to ask. You're not being nosy, you just want to know about it. So just ask, and because autonomy may not be as important in their particular culture. And again, they have little interest in relationships. Again, because they have been, been guilted into it, they've been afraid, and their environment is not being protected. So if children have been abused or neglected, they learn that adults are all powerful, all powerful. In other words, adults make all the decisions and adults totally control their lives. So the child can become dependent on the adult and not in a really good way. And often the child will fail to make eye contact again because they're fearful and they're so focused. They're hyper vigilant on trying to keep themselves safe because their parent has not particularly kept them safe. Okay, this is part one. I do these in 2 parts because sometimes they take long to open and I don't want you to take a long time to open them. So this is part one. So stay tuned. I will be recording part 2 for you.